So, welcome everybody to the Water School Africa online session. This is for the month of March, and I'm delighted that we have a whole new exciting program coming up. I'm Minnie Jain, a director with the Flow Partnership, and we run the Water School Africa in collaboration with organizations and communities across Africa. As you well know, we've been doing this for the last 3 years together. And what I do want to add that from this year, Water School Africa is moving on to a new, even more exciting, even more expansive phase. For the last 2.5 to 3 years, we've been working with our foundational partners to really understand what are the tools and methods we have where we have a collaborative way with organizations increasing water holding in their communities. And some of the ideas that we've discussed and worked and implemented, looking at water hubs, farmer exchange visits. There were exchange visits happening from Burkina Faso to Zimbabwe and to Kenya. And all these were testing to see how farmers can learn from each other and spread that learning far and wide. So, Water School Africa is primarily focused on a water schools movement, which is global. And the ideas behind that is farmers know how to hold water. Can they teach each other across the world? And after teaching each other, can they actually do it? So, water literacy and water action are the two underpinning strands of water schools. And Water School Africa has always been a part of testing that and allowing that to happen. And I'm very excited to say that it's been very successful. Our foundational partners are now carrying it further into their communities. There are established water hubs. We also started something called water competitions where farmers were in a very friendly way seeing who could hold more water. And Muonde Trust, who you'll hear from them in a little bit, will tell you about how the farmers really responded to that and what kind of prizes enabled them to take that work forward. So I'll stop here. This is an introduction to water schools. If anybody, we are opening this out now this year, from this year onwards, anybody who is doing good water holding, any organization that would like to partner with us, any organization that would like to join in this network and movement of water harvesting, do send me a direct message or do email us. I'll put them in the chat. And also, there is a WhatsApp group called the Movement of Water Harvesting. Do join in and contribute with all your ideas, suggestions, work that you're doing and help this movement to become global. Today, we have a very exciting set of speakers that come from 40 years ago right through up till the present, looking at the history of what can happen when you sow the right seeds. And to introduce them, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Philip, who will then we will take it further. The format will be the usual. We'll have a few conversation, we'll have a reflection, we'll have this couple of presentations, and then after that the floor will be open for us to have a discussion, ask our questions of the speakers, and then we close sharp in an hour and a half. So thank you for coming, and over to you, Philip.
Yeah. Good day to everybody. And it was really exciting 3 years ago when we began to explore Africa and we met Nelson, who I see is here, Rob Sacco, Muonde Trust, and we saw the real depth of the traditional African way of holding water. And yet it was quite confusing to try and understand what was the relation to the colonial era. There was no pattern in it. It just seemed like opposing systems that didn't understand each other. And then one day on the train, I read the research of Ian Scoones in 1982 with Muonde Trust, and that research was really mind-opening because it showed that basically there are two systems. The colonial system was to take water off the land, to drain the land, and to control the land because you just then supply water with irrigation as much as you need, fertilizer, etc. While the traditional system was holding water on the land. And the research in 1982 really brought out that what were the consequences to small-time African farms of this confusion, that their traditional way of farming was somehow overwritten with a different method. And It was great pleasure hearing Ian Scoones introducing his new book, Navigating Uncertainty, which is a really good title, Navigating Uncertainty, Radical Rethinking for a Turbulent World. So you can't have a more appropriate book than that for our modern times. And to get in touch with Ian again, and from that has come this opportunity to bring Ian back together with Daniel, Emmanuel, and Abraham, who were present in that original research. Abraham really excited me by telling me about how he used to go on his bicycle from farm to farm, getting this priceless research. So without more ado, I'll introduce you to Ian, and he will set the whole ball rolling before we hear from Emmanuel, uh, Daniel, and Abraham. Over to you, Ian.
Well, thank you very much for the introductions, and thank you for inviting me to this. It was a real pleasure to say, well, to reconnect with Abraham, who, as you said, I worked together with 40 years ago. Daniel, I think, was only barely born at that point. So this is a nice connection to reflect on what 40 years of engagement between research and community partnership and local level innovation can actually do. So Philip, you originally asked me to think about, well, what were the origins of the Muonde Trust? Because obviously Abraham and Daniel and Emmanuel can talk more about what happens now. But what were those seeds 40 years ago? It wasn't 1982, it was a little bit later, but a long time ago. And what role did research play? Because very often in community development and development more generally, research is often extractive. It often is used to impose alternative ideas. But research, I think, potentially can offer a different way of uncovering and making valid and giving voice to alternative ways of thinking that challenge, as you said, the mainstream colonial forms of development. So for me, this all started 40 years ago in 1986, late 1985, early 1986 in Mazriwa in southern Zimbabwe, which will be talked about later. This is a dry, remote area in the south of the country. And together with a colleague, Ken Wilson, we formed a research team around the two PhDs that we were starting off exploring at that time. We were both linked to the University of London, but also the University of Zimbabwe. Ken was working on agricultural production and human welfare. I was working on livestock ecology and household economy. Through the period 1986-87, the team grew, and that included Abraham as one of the researchers on his bicycle, but a number of others, different research assistants, community workers, affiliates, student researchers. I dug out of the depths of my computer yesterday a report that we produced at the end of 1987 on what was happening around the research. And at that time, there were 15 resident research teams, members of the research team in Mazriwa, and 11 undergraduate research projects that were ongoing with students who were linked to both the University of Zimbabwe and UK universities. So it became known colloquially in the area as the University of Mototi. It was not a university. It was in the small township in the back of Beyond where the bus went to Zishawani once in a while. But those of you who've been there today, it probably hasn't changed hugely. And we were hosted very generously by the primary school headmaster, now late, sadly, Kefas Mukamuri. So we're all crowded in his house or staying in different places around the villages nearby, investigating different strands of research. The PhDs obviously kept Ken and I going, but actually as the research unfolded, we began particularly through the community workers and the research assistants who we were working with, listening to what people were telling us, what were the important issues that were coming up from the ground. And there were three that emerged fairly soon after we started. One, which we'll go on to discuss in much more detail, was the strand of work on water and water harvesting. Another was on indigenous trees and the management of indigenous woodlands. And the other was on seeds and indigenous local seeds and their preservation, but also processing. And we were spurred out of our, PhD mode into sort of more practical action and applied work by a very remarkable member of our team, who you've already mentioned, I think, Zephania Phiri Maseko. Mr. Phiri, as we knew him, was a phenomenal person in all respects. He had this vision for transforming landscapes through the management of water, what he called planting water. He was later called, in a book written about him, the water harvester. And he led us to think and rethink as two very naive, young, white, 20-year-olds doing research, to think, well, what could we do that would link our research to more practical interventions? He, of course, had been doing his own research outside the ambit of a project on his own farm over many years, indeed, during the period when he was detained by the Rhodesian government, developing his wetland area and the harvesting of water around that place. And even though he passed in 2015, over 10 years ago, at the age of 88, that farm is still an extraordinary demonstration of what you can do in a very dry landscape with and through the management of water. So Phiri joined the team, and he'd previously been working as a community worker with the Lutheran Water Federation, and joined the team to think with us about how to sustain and multiply water resources in this dry landscape. So it was a wonderful partnership, and to some extent I learned probably more than Mr. Phiri than on issues of rural development, resource management, and water management more broadly in those few years than I ever did at a university. In order to keep this work going, we had to raise a little bit of money, and I found again in my files a scan of a handwritten application to Peter Bacher, who was the head of Oxfam in Zimbabwe at that time, written in a very amateur handwritten form, saying basically we would love some money to help pay for Mr. Phiri to get on his motorbike and drive around these areas, find small traditional wells and think about how to rehabilitate them, find dam sites that we could build through earth and other forms of damming, and develop a plan for water harvesting, flay or wetland management, and think about sand and river wells as well as harvesting water from roofs and so on. It was Phiri's own vision for how the ideas that he'd been developing at home in Sepani, just north of Shishawani, how they could be spread more generally. Phiri, of course, was a researcher as well. He wasn't applying to a PhD, but again, in my files, I found again scanned notes of Mr. Phiri's handwriting showing where he'd been that day. He kept a diary of different wells and different water places around in the initial work around Majiwa. Fascinating to reread now, 40 years on, because he had a very acute sense of where water lay, where it could be managed, how it could be managed, and a sense of who are the people involved in the management of water through dams, weirs, and so on. So we asked Oxfam for a very small amount of money. I think it was 35,000 Zimbabwe dollars in those days. And those Zimbabwe dollars in the 80s were worth a little bit more than they became worth, but it wasn't very much money. And at that point, in 1988, with that money, the Zhishawani Water Project was formed. And over the years subsequent to that, the Zhishawani water projects, through work by Phiri and other workers such as Richard Njachana and various others, transformed the landscape in Majiwa, in Chivi, in Runde, and various other places, through countless wells, dams, and what became known as Phiri pits. Phiri pits were basically holes in the ground which could capture water and draw water into the farms and the fields, rather than, as you said before, pushing them away as the old contours or Makandiwa used to do. If you look from space, I'm sure you could see the imprint of Mr. Phiri in the way that water was reimagined across this landscape. You could probably even see the many wells, the many pits, and so on. But what, of course, it changed much more was not just the physical landscape, but people's lives. People had access to water. They could develop their farms. They could develop their livestock systems and so on. And the work of the Zhishawani water projects continued until 1996, when the project finished and Muonde Trust took over the legacy of that work. And Phiri, of course, carried on his work, and his son has carried on it since until his death in 2015. The other projects, as I mentioned, were intimately linked with water, because you can't think of trees without thinking of water. You can't think of seeds without thinking of water. So in the conceptualization of the team, the research that was being thrown up by these community discussions on what issues were important were all connected to how to improve environments, but improve livelihoods with those environments. And one of the big debates was the standard interventions from government, and the Forestry Commission in particular, was to plant huge numbers of gum trees, of eucalyptus, which sucked water from the fields, dried up the landscape, whereas the indigenous trees could protect water, they could protect wells, they could protect the spirits that lived in these trees to keep the landscape cool. They created micro-environments around which cattle concentrated and deposited manure. Trees transformed landscapes, not just as timber, but as intimate parts of the landscape. And I was studying livestock, spent a lot of time trailing around these landscapes, as Abraham will remember, following animals, finding out where they went, and the use of different types of vegetation was key, not only for browsing, but for shade, as I said, spots where manure were deposited. We also realized that the fields in which people planted their crops were not just fields in that conventional sense, cleared completely, but in fact, these fields were orchards. They were full of fruit trees. And the extension officers said, "Oh no, you should clear all these trees. It should be a clean land." But actually, to have fruit trees within the fields, and we did quite a lot of work on trees in fields, was absolutely critical, not only for changing the local microclimates of those fields, but also through fertilization from leaf litter, but also these were trees that provided nutrition for kids, for families, in terms of fruit, and also for animals. So out of that work and that thinking, which was together with Mr. Phiri, another remarkable person, again now late, sadly, Mathau Chakabanda, also from that very village, started to develop an indigenous tree plantation project involving a community nursery, some planting, and then subsequently an alliance with an organization that was called Enda Zimbabwe, and indeed the Forestry Commission. And the seed project that again allied to all of this, which built out of all of this work, was all about reclaiming local millets and sorghums, and indeed rices, which were connected to the work that Mr. Phiri was doing on wetlands, to provide a basis for a more diverse seed base than the standard maize focus of much of Zimbabwean agriculture at that time. So this was all 40 years ago, and rereading the documents that I remarkably found on the internet and in the wonderful Book of Life that Ken put together for Mr. Phiri on the celebration of one of his many prizes, it brought back to me the importance of combining research, as I said right at the beginning, with thinking about how research can translate into action. And the memories of that time came flooding back to me as I was reading them. And it was interesting to reflect on how that time was different to how many projects unfold today. Because very often research and community development aren't integrated in this way. But we realize very quickly that everyone, whatever their background, whatever their formal educational qualifications, is a researcher. Phiri was one of the most remarkable researchers and innovators that I've ever met. He didn't have degrees, he didn't have qualifications, but had that ability. So galvanizing research from a local base, helped by people from outside, like us, like myself and Ken, but is a key part of thinking about how community development can emerge out of trying to understand systems in all their complexities. And I think very often projects just arrive from outside these days and are not constructed in that sort of way over a lot of time and a lot of traveling around the countryside and thinking about what are the priorities with people. So what was the role of outsiders? Two 20-year-old white blokes from England. Again, it sounds like a very sort of colonial relationship, and it could be criticized as such. We had privilege in that we had some student grants, not very much money, it must be said, but we had relative privilege in this place, and we were hosted magnificently by the Montgomery family. But we were able to, because of who we were, help with linking Phiri, Mathau, and others to the other worlds of policy, of fundraising, of NGOs, and so on. So the connection to Peter Waka and Oxfam, the subsequent connection to what was then called the EEC, the European Union, as it became, was also a route to gaining a little bit of funding. We were pretty amateur at it. As I said, their initial proposal was handwritten, because we didn't even have a typewriter. The next proposal was clearly written with an old-fashioned typewriter, but was because I could see the bits that had been Tipexed over and rewritten. But today, projects, I think, are very different. And that's why I think the tradition that has come from that experience way back then and has been brought into the work of the Muonde Trust is important, because it's a different philosophy about how development happens. Because what we developed then, and Mr. Phiri in particular did through the Zephania water projects and the Indigenous Trees Project and the Seeds Project, was not like a classic NGO project of today that you see scattered across Zimbabwe. It was led by the community. I mean, in these documents, the people who had oversight of the project were the elected local councillors, not some remote project official. It was interestingly, and this contrasts with a lot of NGO activity these days, it was integrated with government. It was very clear from those reports, and I remember it, that we worked very closely with Agricultural Extension, we worked closely with the Forestry Commission, we worked closely with social welfare, trying to change the way they thought, but clearly in a partnership type of arrangement. Too often now, the state and the NGOs remain separate. And it involved genuine community commitment. We raised a little bit of money, but it didn't provide a lot of money. And actually, in the formulas that I saw in the budgets in these documents, the community was not only providing free labor for the wells and the dams and so on, but also 25% of the cash requirements for building them. And it was had a very low overhead, in fact, a virtually zero overhead, which meant that the operation could, almost all the money went directly to these activities. And finally, I think, and this links back to the idea of where does research fit, the process of thinking about this work over the years, and I was obviously only involved with the project right at the beginning, although I continue to work in Zimbabwe on various other projects right now on a long-term reflection on livelihoods after land reform in 2000. That the work involved a lot of learning, a lot of reflection, a lot of new ideas that came up. Ideas that were challenging to state officials about the role of wetlands, for example, challenging to ideas about how you use water, not just getting rid of water as drainage, but actually harvesting water, and challenging about the nature of agriculture and fields, having trees integrated within agriculture, long before agroforestry became a fancy thing. So yeah, thank you very much for inviting me to reflect back on that period. It was very formative for me. I was very young. It was a very long time ago. But it is such a delight to learn how the legacy of that initiation, the seeds that we were able to sow at that time, has had such a long, continuous experience in Majiwa and beyond through the Muonde Trust and other work. So thank you.
Thank you, Ian. How amazing to reflect of your journey as well from then to now, and in collaboration with the wonderful community work that kickstarted your research. And the phrase that comes to my mind when I hear what you say and what you've been doing and what Muonde has been doing, and very similar trajectories in a way, how the impact is on both sides. It's not just a one-sided impact. So often the word development tends to focus on communities that don't use a standard Western model of research or data or report writing, but research can work in both ways. Like you said, the remarkable ability that Abraham had, that Mr. Phiri had in absolutely bringing out what is needed for research to be crunched into a meaningful work going forward. Thank you very much for bringing your insights and for sharing with us some part of your journey. We'll have more in Q&A later, but now I'm delighted to introduce to you the very same Abraham from Ndlovu from the Muonde Trust, who's traveled that journey from that time that Ian mentioned and has established, along with Mr. Phiri and other friends, the Muonde Trust and how the Muonde Trust continues to be a beacon in water harvesting, community-led water harvesting across Zimbabwe. And now, as we were discussing, we are trying to spread this across the world, across the 54 countries in Africa. And we saw some of that through Water School Africa foundational work that happened in the last 3 years, where our partners from Zimbabwe, sorry, I beg your pardon, from Burkina Faso and Kenya and Zambia came together to spread that learning within the farmers. So this is work that continues, but now is Abraham. Please come up and tell us your side of the story from the time Ian was part of your trust. So over to you, Abraham.
Thank you, Minnie. Can
Shall
I
I share the
say
slides?
No. No, he can make it without the slides.
Okay, very good.
thank you, Minnie, for for handing over the stick. I would like to greet everyone who is
Just 1
listening to
minute.
what I
Sorry, Abraham, we can't see your face. We can see a lovely umbrella.
oh, you want me to give off my head. Okay.
It'll be nice to see you, if
I've
possible. If
taken it
not,
off
we are
now.
happy to hear your voice.
I'm saying thank you, Minnie, for handing over the stick. I would like to greet everyone who is listening to what I am going to give. I would like to thank also Ian Scoones who have been talking. I think when I met Ken Wilson and Ian Scoones, who were just of the same age, who were just boys living at Mukamuris. So what Ian has been saying is really true. I worked with them together, Ian Scoones and Ken Wilson. As he had mentioned that earlier on that he was doing some cattle following. I was also working with Ken Wilson, doing some follow-ups in the household, cycling on my on my black bicycle. I was very much interested because every time when we went out doing our research, we were to share at the end of the day what each has been experienced. We call it research experience. It was either written on the note, or someone was to tell what he had made during the research. So I would love to say what Ian has said earlier on is true. We worked together with Ian Scoones and again Wilson from 1986. I remember I started on 16 April 1986, and then Ian was introduced by Ken Wilson because they were doing the same doctorate, being supported by the University of London. So we worked together happily. We were a happy group, but it was not only myself and Ian Scoones and Ken Wilson. It was myself, Billy Mkamuri, Johnson Madlakuseni, Blake Mathau, Devi Chakavanda. Some of the people who I'm mentioning are already dead now, and Oliver Moyo. They were also introduced to this project. So working together, we were living at the Mukamuris, and there was also a young man, my relative Benias Moyo, who was fetching water for us when we were out, and he was a careful guy. He was also catering for washing our clothes because we were bachelors. So I would like also to thank him, because now we are all we are now going to tell what we were doing, but we were young during that time. I worked with them. Mr. Phiri joined us almost at the end of 1986. He was working under Lutheran. So with him, Mr. Phiri, he was joined to the research because he was talking of water harvesting. To him, it was really, we thought, because we were young, we thought to him it was a problem, because he said that when it was raining, go out and you can see what the rain is carrying. That rain is washing away the soil. So we want to prevent this. He was staying in his home at Mabanzure, and he was bringing bananas to us in order to plant those bananas. We were living at a nearby irrigation scheme called Msugwa Irrigation. So we planted a lot of bananas at the Msugwa Irrigation. We were living together. To me, I think it was just a play because I was young. But when time passes away and Mr. Phiri went back to his home area in Mapanzure, as Ian Scoones mentioned that by that time they introduced to him, they were working very hard. They introduced him to the Shower Nota project. So Mr. Phiri was working under the Shower Nota project. He went to his home area, and 20 years elapsed. Nobody was doing what the teaching of his teaching about water harvesting. Nobody could not answer what Mr. Phiri was teaching. But as a local person, I saw to it that people were now starting to did some condos which were not up to standard as those which were done at his home. So I had to call these guys. I called Ken Wilson and said, no, I'm seeing some people here who are now doing some condos, but they are not up to standard. So what can we do? Then Ken Wilson said that, oh no, we have been doing a lot of research in that area. So what we can do, I can invite you to come to America so that you can create friends. So when we create these friends, you can open up what you call if you can have something in mind. And then I said that yes, I'm able to come to come if you invite me. I was invited to go to America in 2012, and there I was a student at Earth Island, and then we created friends, a lot of friends, over 50 friends, and then these friends, I had to tell them that I'd been working with guys like Ian Scoones, Ken Wilson, doing all this, and now at this age we want to implement what we have been finding. Then the people of America said that it's a good idea. So what would you like to call your project? Then I said that I would like to call it Muonde Trust. Then they said that, okay, if you call it Muonde Trust, we are going to create a group here, which we call Friends of Muonde. Then I spent the whole of 2012 in America, in San Francisco. Then I came back in Zimbabwe. At the end of 2013, I saw that in my account there was some money which was put in my account to start the work. So initially, I had to gather a group of 20 women and take them to Mr. Phiri. Mr. Phiri was alive by then. He trained them how to do some sand traps, water having techniques. He trained the women to also to adhere to some dead level controls theoretically. Then when I brought them home, they just went there for 2 weeks. Then I brought them home, and at home, because I was having money in my account, I had to start with 4 people whom I trained because I was trained to do some dead level controls by the late Mr. Phiri. So I trained also 4 people, and we moved on to do some dead level controls, because these dead level controls are different from the controls which were done by the regime, because the regime was forcing people to dig drain away controls. Now, with the knowledge from the late Mr. Phiri, we teach people to do dead level controls, because the dead level controls, Mr. Phiri told us that they collect water, it sinks in the ground, and it is spread to the crops. So we're doing that for all as from 2014 up to the present day. And then Luckily enough, I don't know where Mini came from in 2022 and introduced us to work together. Then work together with some people who from Kenya and from Zambia and from Burkina Faso, Mini guiding us in whatever we were doing. And she was telling us to do the right thing at the right time. So I can say we did so many things. And I'm very much pleased to for Mini to invite me to India. Then I said, oh, I mean, I'm old. I don't think I can come to India, but I would send in my son. So I sent in Daniel, who was left by Ian Scoones when he was young in 1988. So Daniel went to India. He was shown what the Indian people were doing, and he was pleased by the river revival system. Then he said, Father, what if you can do river revival, can we not ask the Florida Partnership to support us? Then I said that it's a wonderful thing. So he did very well, and we were very lucky to be given some funds by Water School of Africa, and we did that. We spearmark the river revival, and the people who were, because at that juncture we wanted to try and support the garden, which was funded by UNDP. So the people were saying that there is no water, but they are, what can we do? Then Daniel said that if you can ask some funds from Water School of Africa, we can make a way bridge. So we made a way bridge, which is holding a lot of water, and there are a lot of fish now. People are fishing from that, and then they are getting water from the garden to water their garden. So I'm very much pleased to work with the people around the world, because to myself I say we are living on the same planet. So people are, if the people are living on the same planet, they share some ideas on what to do. So I'm very happy to see Muonde Trust going abroad, but it is not for myself. It is for other people who are seeing what we are doing, and they promote what we are doing. So with the Muonde Trust, we are working day and night. We are happy that we are supported. So I think I don't have much to say, but I'm very happy now to meet Ian Scoones, who was also young when I was young. So history repeats itself now. We're working together, and we were always telling each other. And he adored my totem. He is one of the elephant. Ken Wilson said that no, I'm a fish. We call him Hungwe. So when I met Ian Scoones, I said, Mr. Elephant, because I love him, because he also loved to get my totem. So I think I can end here. I can leave the room to Emmanuel to take over, to tell for him to try and push over what Muonde is doing. So Daniel will end the story. I think I'm very happy to be heard by people around the world talking live. Thank you, Minnie, for introducing me to this session.
Thank you so much, Abraham. Just before Emmanuel, just before you come on, I want to say that old friends, when you were young together and taken the work forward together in different parts of the world, that is truly proper research and its application globally so that it can benefit all on the planet, as you rightly said, Abraham. And one of the things that Ian had said in terms of what the work should be and what the work is, that it should be integrated with government, with elected local councillors. That was what was one of the hallmarks of the work that was happening. And I'm really, really very, very happy to say that the Muonde has carried on the tradition, and one of the pillars, Daniel and Emmanuel are very close friends. Emmanuel is a very strong pillar of Muonde Trust. And Emmanuel, who you will hear from just now, is also an elected local councillor. And so we'll hear from him how he takes this work forward through the work he's been doing with the Muonde Trust and what he learned as a child growing up doing this project. Over to you, Emmanuel.
Thank you so much, Minnie. Hi, Ian Scoones. I have been reading a lot and learning a lot of Ian Scoones from my uncle, Abraham. Abraham is my uncle. And I have been learning a lot of you, Ian Scoones. And I've been reading a lot of you also as I am a graduate, a master's graduate of development studies. So I've read your books, Ian. I've read Sustainable Livelihoods. I also read The Pathways to Change, Agriculture Change, Climate Change, and Environmental Change. I also read The Politics of Globalization, and also Hazards and Opportunities in Farming Livelihoods, all written by you, Ian Scoones. I think I'm very happy to see your face today. You are really a living legend. Same as the big daughters, Abraham and Ken Wilson. So we are the new generation, and you are taking forward what you have done over the years, and we will make sure it doesn't die. It go forward. So Mini, you can share the slides. Unlike the big daughters, we can't do without the slides. The big daughters can do without the slides. From there, yeah.
Right. So you want me to share the presentation from Muonde Trust, right?
Yes, yes.
Tell me if I've got the right presentation.
Yeah. We can start from the impact.
Are we talking of this one?
Yes. Go where it says the impact.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Hold on a minute.
Wait.
I'll just get to there. The impact. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll start the slideshow from there.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. The impact. Yeah, right there. So from the research and the beginning of Muonde Trust, we have started establishing what we call the offsprings or the products of the research which have been done for 4 decades now. So we have started with the dead level contours, and water harvesting is the heart of Muonde Trust, because this area is very arid. So these are some of the answers to the researches done by the big data. So dead level contours, as you can see from the pictures, they give they extend the farming season, and they make the crops resilient. They also make our trees thrive over a long time. And dead level contours have also given birth to what we call dry stone walling, where we protect our ponds, our dams, our fields using dry stone walls. So why do we do this? We do this so that we can do what we call woodlands restoration. We replace the cutting down of trees. I think from the researches which Ian Scoones, Ken Wilson, Abraham Ndlovu did over the years, there was so much cutting down of trees. And at that pace, we could have been a desert right now. But we have introduced some ways which replace cutting down of trees, like the dry stone walls. We also have some method which is called the live edge fencing, where we fence the fields with live edges. So one of the structures which is also very crucial is the rainwater harvesting ponds. You can go to the next slide, Min. Yeah, as you can see from that slide, we have thriving maize crops, we have thriving small trees, we have also some thriving pumpkins right there, which are planted along the contours. So food diversity is guaranteed when you do we do a water harvesting, and analog forestry is granted also. What is analog forestry? Analog forestry is a new way of planting trees and crops in one field. This is one of the new projects Muonde Trust is experimenting and has been successful over the years. Where we grow crops, we also find a way of growing trees along those fields. So analog forestry is one of the most powerful projects being done right now. You can go to the next slide, Minnie.
Yeah.
Yes. Right. Water harvesting enhances soil fertility. How does water harvesting enhance soil fertility? You see, when you plant trees along the contours, those fallen leaves, they fall inside the contours, and over the time they become manure. So we take that manure from the contours and put it in the fields. If you can see from that picture, there's a hand holding the leaves, the manure, which have decayed over time. With water, with the soil mixturing with that leaves, then decay under the active microorganisms working there. So we will take that and put in the field over the time. You can see the bananas shedding leaves there. You can also see the grass when it becoming dry, they shed leaves. You can see the trees along the contour there, shedding the leaves direct into the contours. So when you are maintaining your contour, you will be removing the manure from the contour and putting that in the field. It's no longer the soil. It's now the manure you are removing from the contour and putting that manure in the field. So at the same time, you are also maintaining your contour, making sure it remains in the same depth, and also water can store it can store water over a long time. So you see, you can do that. We call it threesome. Where three things at the same time: manure, maintaining the contour, then improving the soil fertility. So this is one of the importance of water harvesting. It enhances soil fertility. Yeah, you can go to the next slide, Min.
Hold on.
Okay.
It's not. 1 second.
So yeah, this is the impact at our level. Our work as Muonde Trust had impact at household level, community level, and also national level and regional level. So this from this slide, you can see we are talking of household at impact level. You see, those are household rainwater harvesting ponds. A person, a farmer, can dig that and store water, and that water can be used to irrigate his or her crops, horticulture crops like vegetables, tomatoes, and from that, the farmer can also generate income by selling the tomatoes, by selling the fruits, by selling the vegetables. One of the guys you see without a shed there has managed to build a 5-roomed house using that water. He molded 7,000 bricks using that water, something which used to be very difficult in this community because there's no water. The community dams used to dry up early in June. But right now, a person can use water from his rainwater harvesting pond to build a house. Can use that same water to have a horticulture crop. If you can see on the top there's an orchard. That is a widow that owns that orchard, and she sells those oranges to the community, making some money, finding some money to buy food and to take your grandchildren to school. So this is how powerful is water harvesting at household level using rainwater harvesting ponds. So the pegging of these ponds, we do the pegging using A-frames. You don't just dig a pond. if you just dig it randomly, it will destroy your house or your homestead. Instead, you will do it using an airframe, which is a local methodology using locally available resources. It is not a technology, it's something that requires a machine that requires much knowledge. It's just a simple machine in airframe. Just use the local logs and you construct that rainwater harvesting pond. Yeah, you can go to the next slide, Min. So if you see from that slide, it's all about horticulture, improving food security, the growing of vegetables and other horticultural crops, and encourage healthy living and income generation for smallholder farmers. So one of the research result we are implementing is improving income security and food security at the same time. So we are making sure that a farmer got $1 in his or her pocket, and also he got something to eat every day from his field or her field every day, not buying anything. This is what we are trying to run away from. Yeah, you can go to the next slide. So you see, there's an interesting story from that lad. That lad has been winning the district, the Savannah district agriculture competitions for a third time in a row. Why? Because that lad, she is a master, a water harvester. She has got 6 long dead level condos at a homestead. She lives at the Gudo area. I think Ian remains at the Gudo area, remembers the Gudo area. She has named those condos after the long rivers of Africa. This condo you see, it's called the River Nile. It's named after the longest river in Africa, which is Nile in Egypt there. There's also the Zambezi, the other condo is called Zambezi, and the other condo is called Limpopo. They are named after very long rivers in Africa, well-known rivers. So that led, there's is proved to be a master farmer by adopting our innovations, the Muonde Trust innovations. And every year we take visitors to her homestead to see how she is improving his field, and also how she's managing the soil using water harvesting. She's actually one of the people we would like the world to come and see one day how water harvesting has impacted her life, has changed her life. And also, if you have chance, you can search Muonde Trust on YouTube. You will see the videos of that lady, which we have uploaded there. There are some short videos which we do about our work. You can find on Muonde Trust YouTube account. You can search and find them. Okay, so I think I will talk about the future. But before talking about the future, let me talk about how Water School has impacted the Muonde Trust. As my director said, Abraham Ndlovu, that we started working with the Water School in 2022, and Water School enabled us to go regional and international. We never thought that one day we'll work with people from Burkina Faso, from Kenya, from Zambia. We never thought of that. And as we speak right now, the Muonde work is spread all over in Hanamanga community, in Burkina Faso, in Taraka in Kenya. Muonde work is now there, and it's been spread there. This is because of Water School Africa. It has enabled us to go regional and international. And we would like to thank Minnie and Philip for the connection, and also would like to thank the partners we worked with, the REDEP, Groundswell, Riscop. Would like to thank them for the inspiration. And what do we think about the future now? About the future is Muonde Trust. We think that with more public funding and support, we envision a future where our land and landscape remain intact and beautiful. Our water harvesting work should be spread widely and wildly. Water is life. Water should be part and parcel of life in the field, forestry, and everywhere. Soil management remain critical in ensuring improved livelihoods, environmental and landscape for the current and coming generations. So this is our vision about the future. We think with more support, we can take this work and we can fight the monster climate change, which is threatening to destroy this shared planet. Abraham has been talking about this planet being for us all. It's a shared planet. So we think we need more support to carry this work forward. And we have been, as Muonde Trust, my friend Daniel, as you'll be presenting, you will see that we have introduced so many innovations, and we have new methods of holding water, new methods of reviving even the rivers. And you will see from the next presentation that Muonde Trust is not stopping. We are going forward and we are adopting new methods. And we really wish to work with everyone to push this way forward. And one more thing about Muonde Trust. Muonde Trust is practical. We really talk and walk the talk. If you come to our agroecological center, you see that we have got one of the best water hubs, I think, in Africa. Yeah, I think Mini can testify. What you saw, Mini, was just an introduction to a hub. Now we have a hub, and it's one of the best in Africa. I want to thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me just say, thank you, Emmanuel. That was absolutely wonderful. We heard of the past, the research, and the methodology till now, and the future always incorporates the past and it takes in innovation and makes it its own. So, one of the most exciting things that happened when we invited Water School Africa, the then partners, to come to visit our Water School India partners and see what they were doing. What could that cross-cultural, cross-continental learning be, which could then be replicated or applied? We never even thought that. Our thought at that time was just, how can this cross-fertilization happen? And unknown to us, Daniel, who was representing the Muonde Trust, and came instead of Abraham, as he mentioned, was very busy quietly on his own, and he will now talk about what he actually got from there and what he's taking and spreading through the master water harvesting work that Muonde Trust is doing and spreading, what he is doing with it. So over to you, Daniel, and then we'll stop after that and have a reflection, discussion, and questions. Over to you, Daniel.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Mini, for giving me this platform to highlight the journey we have started as Muonde Trust in as far as river revival is concerned. My name is Daniel Ndlovu of the Muonde Trust in Waterman, Zimbabwe, an organization that has been at the forefront of community water retention strategies in Zimbabwe for many decades. Now, I want to narrate the story of river revival, what we have done so far. To begin with, a few months ago, myself, from Muonde Trust Zimbabwe, I traveled to India with the water school, and my colleagues from Burkina Faso, Kenya, and also Burkina Faso, Kenya, and
Zambia.
And Zambia, yeah. to have an exchange visit with the farmers holding exchange meetings with the Water School India network. While in India, I saw the revival work being done by Indian farmers, and I instantly realized that they were holding vast quantities of rainwater, which my own villagers back home were not doing, but also could do it. I quietly learned, and I could see through observation, hold as many conversation as I can, and I could fit in with all whom I met and returned to Zimbabwe with a vision to replicate this learning by starting a whole river revival program with my people. Soon after that, I started speaking with the Flow Partnership to put together a project to first save the Save River and then the whole program of the river revival across Zimbabwe in the coming years. As we started putting together, I informed the funders that the area we wanted to revive was called North Devon, a name which was derived from the white settlers. On further digging, it was discovered that in the local language, the area is still known as Manjere, and North Devon was obviously a moniker from its colonial past. So we termed the project Manjere River Revival to restore our ancestral concept so that we won't go wrong. Yeah, I want to talk about the river itself.
Tell me when you want me to show the slides, huh?
Okay. Now you can
Carry on.
you can remain on that slide. The river itself is 100 kilometers long, and it's a vital tribute of larger Runde River, which originates in the mountains of Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe in Africa. Historically, it was a perennial river with abundant water pools and fish populations. However, decades of poor farming practices and gold mining have led to significant siltation, altering its ecosystem disastrously. The river's riparian vegetation has degraded significantly, with only scattered medium and small trees remaining on its bank. The loss of habitat has also affected wildlife, including the local loss of the crocodiles and fish varieties that once inhabited in those pools. Our long-term aim was to revive the full length of Shawe River. Construction of structures such as check dams, weir dams, will be done to slow the water, allowing it to seep into the ground and recharge the aquifer, increasing availability of surface water for the villages along the river in action to improved access and connectivity in the wider area. Yeah, here comes phase one. You can go to the next slide, Minnie.
Okay.
Next. So as you see, the first slide, the first one, the first with the picture, that was our appearance of the river before the construction. So yeah, that one. Yeah, you can go next. So that is the work we have been doing with the farmers. At first, we have to make sure that our weir will be as strong as it could. Then the first step was to make some drills and insert those steel rods which you see, so that our weir could not be easily carried away. We also have those boards so that they guides the motor which we insert in between the bridge. And you can see the women and the men working on the bridge. That's how we were working. You know, this is quite laborious, but with many people, with many energy singing songs, the work easier. Imagine a bridge that only connects two lanes, but also bind communities together. The bridge will span the Mazviwa communal lanes and the resettlement areas of Maprazo, creating a vital link for all who journey between them. Before the arrival of settlers, this region was known as Manjere, a name steeped in rich history and culture. As we look forward to this new connection, we celebrate the stories and the tradition that have shaped these places. This bridge is more than infrastructure. It's a pathway to renewed friendship, shared experience, and a brighter future for everyone in the area. It's called the Zetway Bridge. In addition to holding vast amount of water, it will also connect Maprazo areas, villages with the Shishavane town. The main villages working on the bridge were 9 villages, and each village roughly has got 55 households, and normally each family has got an average of 6 people. Approximately 5,000 people live near the river in 30 villages bordering it, while the border community of those who rely on its waters for various needs can swell to 40,000 people at a time. Now we want to look at the current situation or the previous situation where people were living. It's like people in Mazviwa, at that side of Maprazo where we build a wheel bridge, normally rely on handouts, and fewer than 10% possesses the minimum livestock assets needed. More than 6 cattle. Very few have salaried jobs. Informal mining, semi-illegal trades, and regular illegal labor migration are the primary sources of livelihood for both men and women, particularly the youth. The majority depend on agriculture for subsistence and income growing a variety of crops such as groundnuts, maize, cowpeas, and pumpkins. The area is very, very arid and faces persistent drought, receiving less than 400 millimeters of rain annually. In 2024, we recorded very, very little rainfall of about 203 millimeters, which has weakened the possibility of a good harvest with surplus produce, which in turn weakens household livelihood and further increase community destruction. You can move to the next slide. Again, move again. Yeah, I would like to talk about the impact. Yeah, this is the bridge. As you see, this is the bridge before the rains came. It was then finished, but the rains, there were no rains by then. So let us visit the slide when we received the rain. Yeah. Yes, that one. Yeah, I think you can all see that there's a lot of water over there. It stretches of about 5 to 6 kilometers, with the water being full, and the depth of the water is 3 meters. And the bridge itself, in terms of width, is 3 meters for allowing transport of almost to cross over. Now I want to talk about the impact of the bridge. The River Revival project will have a transformative impact on local villages, increase the water availability, will help the people to establish the 5-hectare irrigation scheme, which works under sand abstraction solar powered system, allowing them to cultivate tomatoes, okra, maize, cucumbers, cabbages, etc., thereby enhancing food diversity and security. Increased crop yields will lead to improved income generation and livelihoods for the villagers, along with the many other economic benefits. Additionally, the project will alleviate water scarcity for livestock, providing a reliable water source for both wild and domestic animals, while also promoting aquatic life including an expected increase in fish populations such as bream and catfish. The project will also foster community engagement, ownership, and cooperation, promoting social cohesion and collective action by empowering local communities to manage their natural resources sustainably. It will also contribute to their resilience, adaptability, and self-reliance in the face of climate change. It is those people who are nearby, they can also venture into poultry production, beekeeping, fish farming, and massive increase in goat rearing. Crops grown will include tomatoes, carrots, watermelons, vegetable, butternuts, okra, and maize, because these crops, they can also generate income at an alarming pace. Currently, they harvested only maize and tomatoes, while other crops were failing due to lack of water. But now I visited the area, the 5-hectare irrigation, and they've planted beans, which has been doing well. I suspect that even if it is the rain season, uh, yes, the beans can grow, but even if there was no water, no rains, the crops will do well because they've got a plenty of water and they've got infrastructure like solar and submersive pumps to irrigate their gardens. In the fish varieties, breams and catfish thrived in the past alongside species like tilapia. I hope there is a renewed hope to bring some of these species back to the restored water. In terms of income, these people have been struggling up to such a situation that they can earn just $50 a month. But with this irrigation and this plenty of water available, they can plant as much money as they can. However, when we were building this bridge, we encountered some challenges. We encountered challenges of transporting people from one place to the other because the area is quite a distance from Muonde offices. Also, there was need to ferry materials like stone, even the equipment for using like the compressors, we have to hire, things like that. But when we are resourced adequately, I promise the whole river is going to be revived. For the sake of time, I don't have much to say, but just to say thank you all for listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Marvelous, marvelous. Thank you for sharing that work with us. And I just wanted to add to what Daniel said is that what he saw in India, what the farmers were doing and holding vast quantities of water and what he felt they could do, that one challenge we noticed was that in India, they had all the machines, whereas you guys worked actually with, as you said, with labor and very few machines. So one of the things that can help this work to increase at pace and revive all the dry rivers in countries across the world is a collaboration between tech and community. So use it for the benefit of community as well. So thank you very much. It's been a long session. We don't have that much time left for discussion, questions, and reflection. But what's been really brilliant is when the research started and how the research, the methodology that the Muonde Trust developed and have become master water harvesters and are teaching it across as they said, regionally, locally, regionally, nationally, and now internationally. And then what the innovative vision for the future is, reviving all the rivers first in their country, in Zimbabwe, and then in the future. And of course, that's an intergenerational work. It's not just one generation that will do it. So we can stop here. And if anybody has any reflections or questions that you have, please put up your hand and we can ask them. We might run a little bit over time, that's fine. But do ask. We have Ian over here, we have Abraham over here, we have Daniel, we have Emmanuel. If you have any questions that come, do ask. Yes. I can see Walter's hand up, Walter, but I can also see Ferdinand's hand up. So, Ferdinand, maybe we'll start with you. Ferdinand, please go ahead, and then after that, Walter.
Thank you so much, Mimi, for this session. And mine is a compliment, a comment. I have learned a lot from this presentation. First of all, the focus, the consistency in adopting to new challenges and weaving this with the new development areas like agroecology. This is very inspiring, and coming from that research work, and this has been carried along the spread among farmers, and we can really see how such initiatives can also spread, and it's a seed that was planted early, and this is germinating and has grown to other communities. We learn from this example, and thank you so much for having this particular session. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that comment, Ferdinand. I'm sure our colleagues appreciate it. And I also want to say that if this is a learning, truly, this is a learning space. And if you, this is a bit for everybody as people start leaving. If you want to be kept informed of these sessions, we feature a new organization every month talking about their methods and what they're doing. And if you want to learn from these sessions, please post your email and your WhatsApp number, and we will keep you informed in it. We've given you ours. It's at the beginning of the chat, so don't hesitate to do that. And in the meantime, we continue the session with a question from Walter. Walter's been our colleague and one of our foundational partners with the Water School Africa, working in Zambia. Amazing work with schools and with young people and farmers, one of whom Cosmos has done phenomenally. But over to you, Walter. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you to the whole team that has put together this amazing presentation. It is wonderful to see the integration of indigenous knowledge, science, research, intergenerational learning, and also the last part on trying to regenerate a whole river catchment. So very amazing work. My question is to Ian, who shared about the nostalgic work earlier on, where the work was much more sustainable with the connection between government, civil society organizations, and also not much money being needed to make a change. I just wanted to find out from your own perspective what you think has gone wrong from this earlier sustainable way of developing our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. Ian, are you there? Please unmute yourself and answer the question. Yes.
Yes, I'm here. I mean, it's a good question. I'm not sure I got the obvious answer. I think what's happened over the last decades is a particular style of professionalization of NGOs and projects, whereby the main rationale for many NGOs is just to get the next grant rather than do the work. And through that process, many of these NGOs have built a requirement for large overheads, lots of cars, buildings, you name it. And they become then divorced from the local communities who they were supposed to originally serve. I'm glad to say Muonde is very different. That process of, as it were, establishing yourself as the go-to place for any external money divorces yourself very often from government and an interactive, collaborative approach to government and with integration of local leaders. And that, to my mind, undermines the capacity for the longer term sustainability of development efforts, because projects, by and large, they're funded for 3-5 years, they disappear, then there's another project that comes along with another fad, another set of ideas which haven't been built from the ground up. So yeah, I think it has gone wrong, and reclaiming the original visions of how development might work from the bottom up is a really important task.
Thank you, Ian. That really is a very critical sentence you've just said, that from the bottom up, having that collaboration from the bottom up with the leaders, with the local leaders, with the government, with the community, with whoever is interested in it, that collaboration has to be integrated, not held to ransom at funding and funding bids, which scatter and fragment projects, fragment relationships. It does not work. That mindset does not work. If we want to regenerate the planet, you very rightly, you've put your finger on the button. Walter, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much, Ian, and thank you, Minnie, for the opportunity. It's a key question, and I think Ian has shared some good insights into the way forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? We are coming towards the end of the session. If there's anybody else who would like to ask a question, we can take in one more maybe. But the space is open. I've put in an email over there. Do get in touch with us. Water School Africa is a growing movement across all the countries. So if you're keen on coming into it or partnering or bringing your work into it, do reach out and contact us. And we can see how we can develop partnerships together. But you can keep the conversation going. There is also the Google thread on which we can keep this conversation going. And very importantly, the movement of water harvesting WhatsApp group really allows a discussion around these methods and around what each one of you are doing and bringing to the table. So if there's anybody else, we'll take a question. Otherwise, we'll thank the speakers. I'll just keep quiet for a minute and see if there's any other hands are raised or any other comments or questions coming in. Okay, so it just remains now for the moment to thank all our participants, all our presenters, all the people who brought their wisdom to everybody in terms of what can happen, what is happening and what can happen when you open your mind and envision a healthy, rich, water-rich green planet. Thank you, Ian, very much for the journey that you've been on in the last 40 years and for sharing that with us. Thank you for that collaboration, Abraham, that you had with Ian, with Ken Wilson, with Zephania Phiri, and then bringing that to us in this session. And then thank you for passing that on to your next generation, like Daniel and Emmanuel, who shared what they would like to see happening in their country and in the world. Holding water in the landscape is the key to reviving rivers, to reviving communities, to reviving your local regions and the planet. And that we can only do together. And Water School Africa is your space to do so. Thank you, everybody, for joining in and wishing you well as you continue this journey. And we hope to see many of you in future sessions and talk about your work. Thank you for now. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Minnie.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.